Record. Hello, welcome to the DJVonFire podcast. I'm your host, David Joshua Vales. I will also be producing, although Joseph Anthony DeCenzo helped me out a little bit, as we are in his house, and we are visiting with Victoria Ann Epperson. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And we just heard from you not too long ago on service, and so what better time than to have you on? Then kind of after that, people have been asking, "Are you going to get her on the podcast?" I had someone email me right afterwards or text me and say, "Can we hear from her on the podcast?" So we just want to get to know her today. That's all we really want.
Good.
You've kind of been on the list since March though, and you're out of town a little bit.
Avoided the list.
You avoided the list, but you'd like to spend time in Missouri.
Yes, that's my home.
That's your home.
Mm-hmm.
So you're there. So you visit here.
Correct.
And that's your
For
home.
About 42 years, I've been visiting here.
42 years you've been visiting here. You've considered it. It's nice that you have a place. What is it about? What do you love it? Why do you love it so much?
I'm not so sure I love it. I was ready to get away from there. I love the city. I found out I was just city girl stuck in the country, and I liked it once I got to the city. But we kind of go full cycle. Mm-hmm. And now it's restful. It's peaceful. I watch the cows. I watch the grass grow. I watch the alfalfa grow. It's very calming. I think that's my biggest pull to there. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about my patio room later, maybe. Oh. That is a big pull
in Missouri
for getting there. Yes.
Is that where you spend every morning, every evening?
Yes.
All your time?
Yes. Basically, the bulk of my time there, it has 3 walls that are windows. Mm. And you look out at the barn, you look out at the field, and my mom's rocking chair that came from Texas is sitting in that room. Mm-hmm. And I sit there and I rock and I read. Mm-hmm. Instead of rocking and rolling, I rock and I read.
And then you're listening to just the sounds of nature.
Oh, yes. Birds are very loud in Missouri. Very loud.
Can you tell bird sounds? My mom always seemed to be able to.
I'm not that good at it. But there is a difference.
Yeah.
I know morning birds. They have a nest right outside my bathroom window, so I know them.
Birds tend to get up pretty early. Are you
early bird? You've heard that, haven't you?
Yeah, right.
Yep.
It's
I'm an early bird.
It's a real thing. Oh,
it is,
right,
and I am.
You're getting ahead because in my game I asked. So you said you're an early bird. You answered a question.
Slow it down, Vicky.
Vic, so we talked about your name a little bit because everybody here calls you Nonni.
Mm-hmm.
Who made up that name?
I did.
Oh, you did?
With that first grandchild.
Okay.
They said, now, what do you want to be called? Mm-hmm. And I thought, now, it has to be something that a kid can say very early on because everybody wants them to say your name.
Right.
So I thought, Mama is close to Nonni. Mommy, Nonni. So turns out that was kind of a rough thing, too, because it was hard to tell, was it Mommy or is it Nonni?
Yeah.
But that's where it came.
When Kayla was born, she was lucky enough to have her great-grandma, so she was Nana. Yes. And then we kind of let her go with the name. So we didn't really have, we obviously said grandma and grandpa, but she got to name the grandparents with whatever she could say. Like you said, make it something simple.
That's right.
And
grandma sounded old.
It does a lot. I think that's.
I don't know.
I think that does. And even now, when the kids talk about grandparents, even now it's like, well, it's my grandma, but nobody even feels like. I kind of like the difference.
I do too.
But she went with Poppy for one grandpa and Papa for the other. Now, what is
Papa?
Papa.
That's what we go, Papa Bear.
But then she called both mamas Mama. Now we spell it different, but they're both mamas. So originally we didn't know which one she was talking about.
To each his own.
So then it was Mama Poppy and Mama Papa. So maybe we should have just picked it for her, but that was our fault. Before we get into too much more, and we're going to get back to the your, what did you call it? Your patio?
Patio room. Mm-hmm.
Because I want to talk more about that because I kind of like that too. We have a game here. It's just called DJV Rapid Fire. As opposed to DJVonFire. And so I'm going to ask you 15 prompts.
Oh, 15?
Well, it's 5, 5, and 5.
Okay.
And it's rapid fire, so it's kind of quick. And your answers are only one word or a phrase.
I'll try.
And, it's not timed, but, as quick as you can. And then whatever comes to mind. And I said weather, and someone said the Cubs once. So Sometimes rapid fire
the
really
wall.
is too. Right, off the wall. All right, so we're ready for the game. Jonathan, if you get a chance in post-production, put a little... last week he did a nice job. He had a thing zoom in and it said DJV rapid fire. I don't know if he's going to do that. All right, first thing that comes to your mind. Technology.
Phone.
1980s.
Big hair.
Oh, that's good. The Bible.
Oh, promises.
Cooking.
Hate it. 2 words.
That's allowed.
Sorry.
Okay, we're going to come back to that too. Gardening.
Flowers.
Okay. All right, now I'll give you 2 things. You got to pick one. And I'll give you the first one because you already knew that. Evening or morning?
Do.
Oh, okay. So this one is you pick either.
Oh, which I like.
Right, which one you like.
Okay.
So.
Morning.
Okay.
By far.
Palos Heights or Moni?
Oh, Palos Heights.
Okay. Do you like breakfast sausage or bacon?
Bacon.
Do you like rice or potatoes?
Potatoes.
All right, now it's your favorite, and then I'm going to ask you a question. So what's your favorite meal? This could be more than a word. Do you have one that...
Sweet sour chicken, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you make this?
No.
Okay. Favorite type of shoe to wear?
Sandals.
Favorite place... Oh, I was going to save that. Favorite child?
Oh, no, you won't trip me up on that.
I tried. Favorite in-law?
Oh.
No. Very good.
No.
We were just waiting. Finally, last question then. What's your favorite place in the world?
Home.
Home, which is Missouri.
Well.
Or is it where family
Home is wherever family
Okay,
is.
that's good. See, that wasn't too bad.
Not too
You made
bad.
it. And we got to know a little bit something. So
Yeah.
I do like that you said home is where family is.
Yes.
That's been important, obviously.
Very important.
Because our church is all family.
It is, and we moved here in 1978 and left every one of our family.
Yeah.
And our home was the hub. People came there on Thanksgiving. They came there on Christmas. The holidays, we were kind of the middle of about 50-mile radius where most of my family cousins lived. And we were, then when we moved up here, and there was not one on Thanksgiving except our 6 around that table.
Yeah.
That was hard.
So you're 78, so Drew was a newborn.
He was born 2 weeks after we moved.
After. So that's how you know how long, right?
Oh, yes. He's our timepiece for Chicago.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Ethan is just turned 11. I mentioned this on Joe's podcast. So we know how long we've been at second place and how old second place is because of how old Ethan is. So we have our own timepiece. Go back to cooking because I remember, let's fast forward when Drew was a little older, but he invited me over once and you had put on this huge meal. I don't know if it was
Which I probably didn't fix all of it. Was it a Sunday?
I think it was a Saturday afternoon, or it was a random day. Maybe it was a Saturday afternoon, but you made slaw.
Oh,
Did you
that's
make? Do you
interesting.
make?
Probably, yes. I just haven't made it
Hasn't
probably
made it in a
since
while.
that
Since
day,
that day.
I imagine.
It was the best slaw
I
I'd ever
tell ya.
tasted. So, if you don't remember it,
Nope.
so that's why I thought I'd ask you. Because,
I probably bought it.
because did you have to do a lot of cooking, but you just don't
Oh,
care
yes.
for it?
Oh, yes.
It's more stressful than relaxing.
I don't enjoy it. It's just something. Now, I had to cook. I had a family of 4. And I learned if you can read a recipe, I call that cooking.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a cook, you don't need a recipe if you're a real cook. I don't know how to do that. I never learned. But I can read, so I could follow a recipe. And people get hungry. It's just how that rolls. They 6 people, and they had their friends that we brought in, and it was just, we had a lot of food, and maybe I got burned out. But I think if you really enjoy it, you don't get burned out. And I'm kind of done.
You're done
cooking. Yeah.
There's our timer. That was good.
There you go.
It's time to cook. No. So I enjoy cooking. I'm busy working and coaching, but I feel like I'm a cook, although my taste buds I won't try everything. Are you?
I can try about everything.
Try everything.
But I think it's interesting generation-wise that your generation, the guys cook. Now, at 74, And my husband's older than quite a bit, 7.5 years older than I am. It was divided duties, and it was like inside work, outside work. And I think you've come along. I watch the guys around here. They all cook. They can often, Papa would starve or eat the same thing every day. He makes oatmeal pretty good. So that, I think, is something that's changed and evolved.
What I liked, I mean, because my mom was one, she'd push the chair up to the counter, right? And then I'd help out. And so it was something. And then when we got to have a family, it's like, well, the deal was when Maurice and I got married. Now,
I remember that well.
On Sunday, you mentioned Marisa Mulick, and then you had forgotten her last name.
Yes.
But she was, we said, well, if whoever cooks, the other one's going to do the dishes.
Exactly.
That was kind of like how it was.
That's the rule.
And I don't know if I just didn't want to do the dishes or what, but I took the dishes. And she said she can follow recipes. She makes lasagna is actually her go-to, but she needs the recipe. She's got to measure the garlic powder or in the salt, but she could do it. And where I grab it and I sprinkle.
Yep. That's the difference.
There's someone on YouTube I was watching this week, and she goes, "Whatever the Spirit tells you," is how she. She
Spirit shuts up on me with that.
So you need you can cook, but you're not a cook.
A cook.
Okay. Right. So then let's go gardening. You mentioned flowers. Do you like to do the gardening?
Yes, more younger, but I called it lessons in my garden because I learned so much. Number one, you have a lot of time when you're out there working and it's quiet. And that's when the Spirit talked to me a lot. And so many things about yanking those weeds out of the garden. You cannot have a beautiful garden if the weeds take over. They are very hard to get rid of. And you have to dig deep to get them out. So many lessons in that garden. But if I did my homework and I did what that little garden needed, we had a beautiful outcome.
So you almost have to, that's like a life experience, because obviously you have the Bible story and you think about weeds or dropping the seeds, right? That's kind of where you're going with that.
Exactly.
But until you get out there and you get your hands in there and experience, then that story is, you find it's difficult to tell, right? Or understand.
I have to have, I call it my digger tool. And if I don't have that weed digger with me, it is you can't just pull out most weeds. They don't come that way. You gotta dig those babies out and get them out there. And there's a lot of life principles with that. They're just not, if you get what's on the surface, you've not got them. You've gotten rid of stuff temporarily, but you've not gotten to the root of it. Dig her out.
So then go ahead and tie that to, I see you've got Joe wanted to get a Bible cam out for us, but he did not. But
that's okay.
So how does that relate? How would you say that to one of your children or your grandchildren as far as the weeds?
That's right. Well, children and grandchildren are two very different approaches.
Okay, well, I'll let you do grandchildren because the last 24 years you've been dealing with grandchildren.
Yes. So. That's where when Grandma has more time, Nonni has more time, that's mine to decide what I'm going to do with my time. When I was younger, we talked about this last Sunday. You can't do this when you've got I had 4 kids under 4. And that is not an easy place to be. And anybody that's been there. So you spend a lot of time saying, oh, Jesus, help me. Oh, Jesus, help me. Now, when you get to my stage, I'm still saying, oh, Jesus, help me. But it's more for whom I'm interceding for. And I got time to do that. And I showed them Sunday. I don't have it with me now. But something visually, I guess I'm a visual person. I need something visually to look at and say, now, these are the homes of my children. These are my grandchildren, 14 of them, in these 4 individual homes. Now, Father, show me how to pray for them. Show me the passages. Because you mentioned earlier, and I don't want to get ahead of you, but praying my promises. Don't pray circumstances. Because most of us have a tendency to pray the circumstances because it's where we are. It's what we're in. And let me put it that way. I'm a person that could be very controlling. And I prayed a lot like, oh God, now this is what needs to be done. And this is how it needs to be happen in sequence. And this is what my kids need. And this is what it's going to look like. Thank you for hearing my prayer. Amen. And the Lord had to teach me. And again, I have to do me. I can't say it for everybody. But I had to learn how to pray effectually, not just fervently, but effectually. And that the only way to do that is to get lined up with God, what he has in mind for my children and my grandchildren. And I think that looks different when they're younger and you're trying to see, oh Lord, I'm in charge of getting them on a career path, getting them where they need to go. And it's harder to pray, Father, I really don't know what you have in mind for these kids, but I know I really want that, and I want it to be your way. Well, so we had to learn.
I remember when Kaylee and David, they were the only two born at the time, and then that prayer came on my heart. You know, it's because you originally were praying, you know, for their spouse. You know, they're 2 years old, and a spouse, or that they stay healthy. And then one day, it was that prayer that came on my heart. Whatever you want for them. And that was hard.
Prayer.
That wasn't easy.
That wasn't an easy prayer.
Whatever you want for them. And to imagine the possibilities or not even be able to imagine, that's what I've been on lately. But I like that. I just saw a quote today. It said, teach your children young what you didn't learn till late, you know, and so
on their level.
And when did that circumstances versus promises come into, when did you make the switch, or it kind of hit you like, I've been doing it wrong? Or...
Oh no, it took time.
Okay.
And who remembers things? I don't remember how long. I know it was a year plus process of, and it wasn't my family so much that I had in mind with this prayer, because we were pastoring. And I thought, I cannot be in front of people, whether it's a women's group or an individual, wherever it is, and say, you know, we need to be praying for our families. We need to be praying. When God, how do I know this is working? Because it looks like my life's kind of out of control right now, Father. So how can I get in front of other people and say prayer works if I don't really know prayer works? Because I can't be a fake. I can't be a put on.
Yeah, that's good.
That's basically where it started. And I would say that was in the middle 80s. The best I can remember, about 1985 was when a resolution to that came. And it freed me that I didn't have to pray a certain way. I didn't have to pray a certain thing. But I walked the neighborhood, and I'm not near into the walking like this generation and my grandkids. It takes it to a whole new level. Yeah. But I'd walk the neighborhood before I would get ready and get dressed and go to church and be in the office or whatever was on for that day. And when my foot hit that step going into our house, the phrase came, pray my promises, don't pray circumstances. And I knew it was God. And this is how I knew. And everybody, it works differently for different people. It felt like the weight of the world was lifted off of my shoulders. Pray my promises, don't pray circumstances. And all I knew for 3 days was, oh, that feels so good. Then about after that third day, and I do remember that well, I thought, what does that mean, Lord? What does that mean? Because it's taken all of those years, and what is that now? 95, 05, 15? Oh boy, a lot of years. Yeah, quite a few years ago. It's that most of us, including me, are just honed in and controlled to a great degree by the circumstances, my grandkids, my kids, circumstances of life that are around me. And then when I find a promise that applies to that circumstance, a promise like, my peace I leave with you. My peace you will have with you always. Now that's a promise of God. And when everything in me is, this is out of control, this is out of control, then the promise says, my peace I leave with you. So that brings me down. Now, over a period of, whatever years that is now, I've gone through many phases of that. But one that hasn't changed much is make an index card full of who God is. All of them. My shelter, my hideaway, my rock, my shield, my provider. Oh, they go on and on and on. And when the temptation comes to be controlled, meaning this is out of control, God, bring it down. Read who you are, Lord, and find what one applies. And now there's many of them because I have needed him many times.
Well, part of becoming a Christian is, and sometimes people on the outside versus people on the inside, or however you want to say that, but they think, oh, I'm a Christian now, so circumstances won't happen, right?
Exactly.
They won't, but you quickly realize circumstances will always be circumstances.
And do you know why? I get to ask you a question. Do you know why that is?
Do you know why that is?
I have my idea on why that is.
I mean, mine has always been, when you pray to be stronger, he's going to give you something that you need to overcome.
Yeah, got it.
Spot
on.
So that's what the challenges are for. And it's hard sometimes you just want to break, which is when you pray to the circumstances. But I like that when you have the word and the promises to go back on.
You go to, because he cares about our circumstances. That sounds kind of hard to say, pray my promises. Don't pray it's like he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He does care. But he doesn't want me controlled by those circumstances. He wants me controlled by his spirit. So he has to bring, and that's, here again, I'll lead you in this, but the reason that question is important to me is that I think when I first start walking with the Lord in a serious manner, it's do. What can I do? And what do I not dare do? In comparison, and not even verses, but in comparison to who am I, God? Who am I in Victoria Ann Herget Epperson? And who am I in Christ Jesus? And here I love English for this because the one verb is an action verb. And the other one is a state of being verb. And that state of being verb is much more important. Now we're back to the character building piece of why it's important for me to work through circumstances that are very, very uncomfortable for me. My go-to would be, what do I need to do to fix this? What do I need to do to be a better person? What do I need to do to get God on my side? And he's saying, that's not it, Vicky.
Yeah, right.
Don't go there. Don't go there. Who did I create you to be? Who am I? And that's those names of God again.
So here's a little twist on it, and you could say this makes sense, or you could say that's interesting, or I'll let you.
That's interesting, no matter
don't
what.
Don't feel like. But Stephen Furtick is a pastor. He wrote a book called Unqualified because people felt that he has a church that's very successful, and people felt like he wasn't qualified to lead that size of a church. But the one thing, I went back and looked in his book, the one thing I highlighted was that he said, I am. And so when people say, I am not good at that, or I am not smart, or I am not qualified, the Bible says that God says, I am the way, the truth, and life. And if God is in us, when I say I am, we're calling upon God. And so when I say I am tired, you're saying God is tired. That just kind of hit a switch in my brain that said, no, it's not who, like you said, it's who you are, but like when he's in with us, in us, and he's our strength. Yes. And so the I am means I can't say those words anymore. I struggle to say I am not enough or I am, only because I know that he's with me in those moments. And so you mentioned, why are the circumstances still there? It's to rely on him in those moments.
It is. And for that character piece, how else do we become what God has created us for? He's known who we are from the foundations of eternity. And I'm born then and start walking it out. And I have to come to a knowledge of who I am in the I am. And don't you like that little timepiece?
It's keeping us on track.
That's right.
But I like that. I mean, for everybody that's watching at home, make sure you share this with someone. Hit a thumbs up. Because I think that was key for this. I think a lot of people needed to hear that last 10 minutes. Yeah, right there. Let's rewind real quick before we get to the quotes at the end. But we mentioned the name Nonni. I remember you as Miss Vicky, but you said you were always called Victoria.
I was.
By your mother.
My mother.
Can you tell us about your childhood? Like, what was it like for you?
Yeah, we grew up in small town America.
Okay.
I was born in 1947, just into the war. My dad had just come back from the war. And I was just telling one of my granddaughters this last week that I think that was the epitome of what it was to grow up in America that time. We were simple people. My dad had grown up on a farm, was a farmer, but he grew up on a farm. He wasn't a farmer, and that was the hitch. It was important for him to get out of there. Not the farming is bad, but he wasn't a farmer.
Right.
So found out that that was a pretty good place I started first grade. We lived in Kansas City before that because my dad was in another occupation. After he came out of the war, he went to Gem City Business College so that he was going to better himself and be able to do something else that he chose to do and wanted to do. Well, come to find out, that wasn't exactly what he wanted to do either, which is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Life just kind of guides us through that. So moved back to where he was born and where my mom was born, and where I was born in that area, but moved out to Kansas City, St. Louis area. And got back there, and it was such a good growing up place, such a good time. Times that you didn't have to lock your doors. The windows were open of a night when it was hot, and just a good time to be growing up. So I had a very happy childhood, I would say, very content. And
then you talked mainly Sunday about, raising a family and the different. I think Sarah walked backwards, right? She kind of started. Is that what she did? Like when they were grandkids, and then your kids were older. Then she even went down to when they were 3 and 4, and you kind of gave us a piece of that. But how has it been? How would you compare the last 20 years with your grandchildren as opposed to those 20 so years with your other 4?
I think you have a pretty good idea of what that answer
do you catch
is
yourself,
going to be.
Hey, let's do it this way. Do you catch yourself parenting grandchildren ever?
I guarded that because the Holy Spirit told me, you are their grandparent. You are not their mother.
Yeah.
And that's hard for a controlling
very
person.
hard.
And your temperament enters into this. And that lock on your mouth turns out to be a very important principle to have. But I think growing up with, what do you call it, multicultural, different, not cultural, but generational.
Yes.
Different generations. And all of our grandkids at some point in the last 20 years have lived with us. Not just been around us. And they all have been around us until the last 4 or 5 years. And I think on each of our parts, Papa and me, and the grandkids too, and the children in the middle, there's a lot of advantages to growing up. There's a whole lot of give and take that has to happen there. Learn it early on in life, and it will serve you well. Everything does not evolve around you, whoever you is. There's a lot of other people in our life, and we need to learn to adapt, and we need to learn to and this is the big word, respect. Because if we learn that in our relationships in earth, you got much more of a handle on it to respect our Father who is in heaven.
Yeah, that's huge.
It is huge.
That's huge.
And I think that's an advantage that our children have had and our grandchildren.
I didn't grow up around my grandparents. I had a set in Michigan that we'd visit on the weekends. Then they passed when I was 7 and 8. And then I had a set that were in Florida.
Far.
And so they were far. And so they had, once in every few years. Did your kids, so Kel through Drew, did they have grandparents that were as involved or around? Or?
Well, not really, because we moved away pretty soon.
Right, as soon as...
Yeah, Kelly was 9, and he's now 50-something. I've kind of lost track.
Yeah.
So
we don't have to throw his age.
Yeah, no, he wouldn't like that probably. Oh, there you go. He's headed toward that one. So we've lived away, but I would have to say, because the Lord has been in the middle, and I know that is a huge advantage. It doesn't make the circumstances a whole lot different, because we still have plowed through our sets, and we don't have time to go into any of that, and it's way too deep and mucky. Yeah. But all that to say, we were very privileged that my mother and my dad in later years, not early on, my mom walked it alone for a lot of years, but in later years, my dad came to the Lord, and my mom and Phil's mom and dad came to the Lord when they were teenagers. So his family knew nothing but that. So we've been surrounded by, but that's a double-edged sword. That can cut both ways, because you can talk to a lot of families that after that many generations, the kids want nothing to do with God or church. And I have thanked the Lord. Now, and I won't go much further with that one, but God is faithful. God is faithful. And he had grandparents in their lives.
Yeah, I just appreciate the relationship. We have David and I, every night, we send 2 things that were kind of gratitude text to each other. And so I say 2 things that were positive, and then we call it one thing that we need to work on, or one thing that didn't quite go our way. But it's to keep the percentages higher of the positive and the negative. And one, I said I was very thankful that he was able to have the relationships with his grandparents. I want them to make sure they realize that at the age of 21 and 19 and 17 and 11, but to be around and have grandparents so involved and loving the Lord is something that not everybody...
And praying for them.
Specifically praying for them. It's not something that a lot of people get. And the benefits of it, especially the prayer, far outweighs. So, and I know that that's how your grandkids see you as well. Okay, quotes. So I gave you the quick run. But if you remember, because as soon as I said the first one, we did a little preview of these just so you had them, and you remembered a Bible verse. So you're stronger than your mind was my first quote. You're stronger than your mind.
I don't remember what I said, but I am stronger.
You mentioned Romans.
Romans 12, 1 and 2. For that's the renewing of the mind. And that's what makes us strong in being able to overcome and to not conform. He says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed, completely different, transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that mind piece is huge.
I like that. Next one, obstacles are not only to be expected, but embraced.
And Paul addressed that with, remember how he talked in Philippians and a lot in Ephesians too, but mainly Philippians, about running that race and keeping it strong. And the only way you do that, we talked earlier, is to overcoming the obstacles and to end up at the end of it stronger in the beginning.
Yeah, obstacles. I think in our talk, circumstances is
there we go again.
Obstacles is a huge, seems to be our theme for this week.
Yes, it is.
Overcoming those. The real growth comes when you step outside that comfort zone. And that might be the end of the quote right there, but I say and tap into your reserve tank. But there's
and hopefully we have a reserve tank.
And some days we don't.
Some days we don't, but we always have God, don't we?
Right, the old footsteps. I only saw one set of steps, and that's when I was carrying you, is huge there. But that's to your point of why are there circumstances, is to figure out who we are or who he wants us to be.
Exactly.
But it happens outside that comfort zone. Today's generations, I said generations meaning it's kind of, it's taken over, is that we just want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said for, I always say there's something to be said for the hard work.
Yeah, because that comfort zone is not where we learn. Whether it's academics, you know that as a teacher. If you keep where you're comfortable, you're not learning anything new. You're not going any place different than you've already been. And in the Spirit is sure that.
I was listening to an audiobook, Do you ever listen to audiobooks?
Not very often, because I love to read them.
Okay.
I can't hardly read off from my iPad because I want the book in front of me.
Yeah, my wife is the same. I use a Kindle and I use audio when I'm driving. So this one is called by Gordon MacDonald, Ordering Your Private World. Susan Donovan suggested it, but he was just talking about rest and how important. He goes, did God need to rest on the seventh day, or was he setting an example? It's kind of how he worded it. So, but the importance of rest, and he goes, he doesn't know if today's generation understands what rest means. It doesn't mean take a holiday and go do something. It's to...
And it's not just inactivity.
Right. It's sincerely to rest and be renewed and...
for a purpose.
For a purpose. It was what he's getting at. So that was, I thought was good for that. And then one we wanted to end with, and you kind of changed it. Are you having a bad day, or are you a bad moment? You're milking into a bad day, and you said into a bad life.
Yeah, you do that often enough.
Yeah.
When it becomes norm to do that. We're opting for, and none of us want to choose that. And we do choose.
Yeah.
We have a choice. We can say the circumstances are what they are, and that if somebody else were in these circumstances, no, we choose.
We choose.
We choose God.
Do you think there was a big time? Was there a part where you had gone 6 months, a year, and you had been in the, how do I want to say that?
Twilight
You had
zone?
forgotten that. Yeah, you had forgotten that.
Yeah.
Or you had milked something into a year and you go, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Did you ever have that?
Well,
or you were pretty quick to
Pretty
get back
quick
to those
catch
promises?
it. Yes,
Yeah.
because I've been in circumstances that if I didn't have it, I would have sunk.
Yeah.
I think that's right. But I think and we touched this Sunday, being the mother of preschoolers and multiple preschoolers, multiple children, that whole era, that was the most draining. And we didn't have our Kindles then, and we didn't have our iPods, and we didn't have the music accessible like it is now. That was a difficult time to stay honed in. And you know what? God loved me just as much. It was, no matter where we find ourselves, we can say, hey, God, I forgot about you. He never forgot about us. So never get trapped into that, thinking it's too late, I've gone too long, or I've done too much. Never, because God never, he promised that in Hebrews 13, 5 and 6. I will never, and he didn't say, I will never leave you just because you acknowledge me. He didn't say that. He said, I will never leave you because he created each of us, everybody. And just because we're slow to acknowledge him and slow to come to that, that's not the criterion. Thank you, God, for that one. What a relief that it's not us.
Yeah. All right, so we're back out on your patio in Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have songs come to mind very
Oh,
often?
my goodness.
Are you someone
gracious.
that starts to sing parts of verses?
Oh, I have a playlist.
Do you sing the Bible verses?
No, I have a playlist.
Okay.
And they don't make my playlist just because they're good music.
Yeah.
They make my playlist because of what they say and the message they sent.
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of different genres on there. But they will always have a message. And I put that playlist on, and there's a lot of songs on them at this point.
Good.
But I'll go to the ones where I am. Like now, it's Remind Me You're There. Jason Gray has a new one out. Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. You can't explain away the sovereignty of God, the omnipotence of God. Don't try to tell me all about him when I'm hurting like everything. But God, just remind me. You're here with me. And that's what my patio room does. I turn on those playlists and hear it. And then we talk a little.
Yeah.
Me and Jesus, we talk. And anybody can do it that wants to, that chooses it.
Yeah.
Got to choose it.
All right, we made it. That was good, right?
Are we done?
We're going to be done. I'm going to wrap it up here. So, did you want to say one other?
No.
Is there anything you thought you were going to say then?
No.
It was good. I appreciate your time and
Thank you.
coming on.
Didn't
And,
hurt.
I think it's important. I think people are going to love this one. I think they talked about
pray
some
that.
things that they needed to hear.
Well, and we all live with.
Oh,
And there's the
our
clock. We did well.
So I'll say I have a quote at the end. It's called, "One life, just one. Why are we not running like we are on fire towards our wildest dreams?" Take care. Make sure you hit subscribe, notifications, and definitely share this one with someone that knows Miss Vicky.